How's it going, guys? My name's Graham and welcome to yet another Easter egg video for Delta Rune. No preamble, I'm gonna dive right into things here. Little known fact, it is actually pronounced Delta Rune. No, really, this is just me admitting that in every previous video I think I kept repeatedly saying Delta Rune. It is definitely Delta Rune. I don't know why that word is so hard for me. It's hard for me to enunciate for some reason. I blame my slack-jawed small town upbringing. Or just the first time I saw it, I said it wrong, and then I could never get that out of my brain. But yeah, lots of people have pointed that out, and they are right. It is Delta Rune. I'm just an idiot and said Delta Rune a lot. Now, proper preamble for this. I in no way expected to make 3 of these. And you may be wondering how after an hour of content is there still more to talk about? I'm left wondering the same thing. But really, it's all thanks to you guys. I pretty well stopped discovering things in this game. Everything you're going to see in this video comes courtesy of the YouTube comments from the last 2 videos, which across the 2 of them are sitting at about 2,500 comments. I have read every single one. Even if I didn't respond or leave a heart or whatever, please know I have read all of these. Thank you guys all so much for sharing extra secrets, for sharing your theories and everything. It's been a lot of fun for me to dig into. Just a reminder, this is the 3rd in a series. I tend to talk back about the first 2 videos, so it really helps if you've seen everything. Now let's get into some proper secrets and such, shall we? In the last video, I showed that when you first save your game, you're actually saving over top of a CRIS save file. Something that was very commonly asked in the comments there. What happens if you play through the entire game without saving? That is an excellent question, but unfortunately, it has no impact on the game. I was really excited for like a secret ending or something, but no dice. Another thing I brought up in the last video was that when you die, you just go back to a save point, but when you die to the Jevil, you get this whole ending text. I honestly don't know what happened. There was like a glitch in my file. You do get this ending death screen every time. For whatever reason, in that one encounter where I died, I didn't get it, and I used that as evidence for all deaths. So that's incorrect, that's my bad. But at the very least, I'm not just giving a correction, there is a little bit more to talk about with this end screen. When the game asks if you want to try again, if you say no, it takes you to this blank screen where you can't do anything, and it's the only place in the game you can hear an exclusive song called Darkness Falls. If you just leave the game open, let that song play out, takes maybe about a minute, the game will close itself. Then you can open the game back up and simply return to your save file. Let's move on to some totally new information, eh? It's enough retreading of old ground. There's a couple of fun ways that Toby might have been playing around with language for characters' names. We talked about how Ruxel's card is actually supposed to be pronounced Rules card, but someone in the comments pointed out that K-A-A-R-T, not D, is actually Dutch for card. Or even literally as playing card. So obviously Toby wanted us to pronounce it as card, but he didn't want it to immediately look exactly like card. Maybe he took a little bit of influence from the Netherlands there. There's also the Hathies, the heart-themed enemies that we encounter. In the Malay language, when you pronounce what is written as Hathi in English, it will come out very similar to Hati, which actually just means heart. I tried looking for other examples of this, but I couldn't really come up with any. There are enemies like Jigsari, which are obviously just a pun, but I was trying to look at names like Rudin to see if there's some other language roots in there. I couldn't find any on my own. If anyone knows any others, then do please share. The etymology of these fictional characters can be very interesting. Before I mentioned the necklaces of Rudins and the board of Jigsaris, if you run into this grouping of 3 unique enemies, it's a smorgasbord. Spelt slightly differently here for a pun about the Great Board, which we use to typically refer to just big feasts. Apparently the literal Swedish translation is table of sandwiches. Doesn't really apply, just kinda neat. Now the thing that I think came up the most next to Susy and Issue being an anagram was the fact that there's this guy chilling in this car in the overworld street. A lot of people are speculating that this is one of the Gaster followers. And while that might be the case, I think he's just supposed to be the guy who's hanging out outside of the Spider Donut shop in Undertale. But then that sprite was definitely reused for one of the Gaster followers. It's really unclear if it's the same guy and he eventually converts or something like that. The reason I brought up this guy in the library before and not the guy in the car is I don't think we ever meet this creature anywhere in Undertale. Whereas we've seen this guy before, regardless of if he's the same as that follower or not, but at the very least I suppose it is worth mentioning. While we're on the subject of Gaster followers, it segues very nicely into talking about the Clam Girl. I mentioned in the last video that she is added in the Switch version of the game, specifically referencing Susy, which is really cool. That's not 100% true, you can still meet this character in the PC version of the game. Apparently the only part that is unique to the Switch is in the epilogue of A True Pacifist Route. She now has a new bit of dialogue. So you never met my neighbor's daughter? But please don't despair, because the time you will meet her is fast approaching. Earlier in the game she talks about the neighbor's daughter being Susy, spelled differently, but still some big hints going on there. And the much more significant part is right after she finishes that little bit of dialogue, the character turns into the grayscale of the other Gaster followers and disappears. So no, the character isn't 100% unique to the Switch, but that bit is. And that would have only been available for people to find about 6 weeks before Delta Rune came out. There's also a funny little bit of dialogue here where he talks about Undyne blocking his path. I guess I should just run away. Which is referencing the fact that when you choose to not fight Undyne, you can instead just continuously run away. So that's probably a little nod to that boss fight from before. It's funny that this little broken piece here where there's no hitbox is coming up for the third time. It's been in the first 2 videos as well, but I haven't figured out what its use is or if it's just a mistake. But what some people have said is that if you intentionally lose the battle that takes place in the next screen against Lancer and Susy, come back here, walk off screen, and bust out the cell phone, which normally, without losing that battle, would make the normal Gaster sound effects. You tried to call on the cell phone, and then before it has a chance for anything to take place, it crashes the game. It's such a weirdly specific interaction that I can't discern any real implications from, but that is one thing that can be done with this weird open area. Who knows if that's just a weird bug that exists in the game, or if in some weird way that's intentional. There's some weird peculiarities with getting rid of items in this game. I had said that I couldn't figure out how to make it so when you throw the bouquet of flowers away, you get this piece of dialogue saying it was thrown away like the piece of trash that it is. Lots of people said you instead get that from the hot chocolate, but I still just get was thrown away. So using the debug mode, I kept loading things and throwing them away over and over again, dozens of times each to see what the outcomes would be. You put the hot chocolate on the ground and gave it a little pat. You bid a quiet farewell to the bouquet, which I didn't even see in the files. I don't even know where that one came from. You abandoned the bouquet. You threw the hot chocolate on the ground like the piece of trash that it is. Majority of the time you just get X item is thrown away, but it does appear to be totally randomized. There's no extra bit of conditions that need to be met, or no real emotion or intention to be read into those words. So hopefully that kind of clears things up with the tossing of items. Alternately, you can drink the hot chocolate, it tasted wonderful, your throat tightened. Probably sad about memories of Asriel. There's another silly book in the library. Please remember my name. Please. I wrote a book to help you remember. By Hot's Fire Guy. This is obviously referencing Heat's Flamesman, a character from the first game who is obsessed with being remembered, whose name somehow ends up being incredibly forgettable. He's like one of my favorite characters, so I don't know why I didn't bring that one up in one of the earlier videos. I love that. Let's spend a few minutes talking about Toriel-related things. I've largely overlooked Toriel outside of pointing out the Cheriel. Let's give Goat Mom some love here. There's little figures in the windows here. I just kind of took it as being Toriel had some sort of figurines hanging out on the windowsills there. Some have suggested that it looks a little bit like a mini storyboard for when Asriel helps out the first human. Sure, it's not exact, but the light beam and everything, it's kind of subtle. I could see that being an intentional, hidden in plain sight sort of thing. Toriel used to talk about wanting to be a teacher in Undertale, so it's very nice and interesting to see that she did become one in Delta Rune. I feel like I'm saying Delta Rune over and over again to prove I know how to say it. Someone told me there was something very specific to come looking for in Toriel's kindergarten classroom. It wasn't readily apparent, but it's some kind of primitive sculpture. Who knows what it represents? Well, when you look a little bit closer... I'm just kidding, it is faked. I did want to address this one because people were asking about it. The image that was getting shared around and everything was a fake image. I just kind of recreated it just to mess with people a little bit. So no, there is no lost meme hidden in Toriel's room. Although now I kind of wish that there was. You can actually find your own personal locker, which is empty, and one that used to be your brother's. Nothing interesting to do with either locker, they just are there in the school. Originally in Undertale, when you check Toriel's oven, it mentions that she likely uses her fire magic to keep it as clean as she does. When you look at it in Deltarune, there's some cinnamony batter caked on the stovetop. And seeing as Toriel's just kind of like a kindergarten teacher here, she might not have any magic powers. You can ask Toriel all sorts of questions. If you ask specifically about yourself, oh, you've grown up so much, someday soon you'll be going to university. Remember when you were little, you asked when your horns were going to grow in. So we bought you that headband with the little red horns on it. Oh, you wore it for months. Whatever happened to it? Now this is interesting because Asriel never had horns, seeing as how young they were. But at the end, when Ralsei takes off their hat, there are red horns there. But if Chris's brother is Asriel, and by trying to emulate Asriel, Chris started wearing red horns, that kind of indicates that they did grow in later in life. Still not saying they're the same person, it just kind of further contributes to the fact that those characters are connected. Weirdly, you can actually go to the mayor's office and the receptionist assumes that you're complaining about your teacher, Alphys. If you don't like her, please blame your mother for getting her hired. So maybe Toriel's been a teacher for a long time, or she's just a very influential member of the community. One last little bit about Toriel. In the first of these videos, I showed that there's some unused dialogue hidden in the Deltarune files. Now, while it is totally unused in this game, it does share some similarities with what you find in an Echo Flower on Undertale runs where you killed Toriel. When you're talking to Sans, you can ask him about friends. He says, I just moved here, I could use some friends. You say, me, why not be friends with me? Whoa there, Tiger. You can't just jump straight into friendship, it takes time. Alright, that's enough time. Take this. Call it whenever you feel like. Now you have Sans' number to call. Now normally when you call this number, it'll put you through a string of different options, and then when it comes out the other end, it says not Sans' number. And when you try to call it, the phone kept ringing infinitely. So for whatever reason, Sans, you jerk, gives you a fake number. Now because you normally wouldn't be able to call it multiple times, and there's no save point in the town, you would have to replay the game just to see what these other options are. I'm playing in the debug mode right now, so you can kind of fiddle around with things a little bit more, so I'll just reload in town and roll through the different options. When you call the number, it rings a few times. Hello? You've reached the hotline for idiot babies. Please press 1 for idiots, 2 for babies, 3 for idiot babies, and 4 for none. 1 for idiots. Ah, you're an idiot. To tell you the truth, I'm one too. Let's try our best, okay? Number 2. Ah, you're an baby. I'm one too. Let's try our best. Says the same thing, basically. The third option, you're an idiot baby. Tell you the truth, I'm one too. Let's try our best. And finally, 4 for none. Why'd you call the hotline for idiot babies if you aren't an idiot baby? And then they rudely hang up on you. That's the extent of it. You really aren't missing out on much there. Hopefully I saved people from having to play through the game 4 times for that one joke. There's a box full of scented markers that you can choose to sniff. You dig out the marshmallow one and start huffing it, which I thought was kind of interesting. Seeing as the dark candy that you can find down below smells like marshmallows. If you still have those dark candies in your inventory up until the overworld, your ball of junk will also smell like marshmallows. So I thought something that would be worth testing before going back to the outer world is to eat up the marshmallow scented candies. If you then inspect the ball of junk, a small ball of accumulated things, And that's it. No remaining scent. I was curious if it would smell like something else. It just becomes nothing. But that does prove that the scent only exists if you're still carrying dark candies. There's a couple of dumb little jokes that play out with this water fountain. You can go to it early on in the game and drink from the water fountain. Susy calls you out on that as she impatiently waits. People put their mouth on that, you know, which I think is probably a reference to Parks and Rec.
Andy is our official water fountain tester.
All right, let's give the sucker a test drive.
A really weird, stupid running joke in that show that this is how people drink out of the water fountain. And you can actually revisit the fountain at the end of the game. You can actually run the water fountain many times. You ran the water fountain, it's lukewarm. On the second time, it's tepid. On the third, it's refreshingly cool. In case at some point you felt that Chris might need a nice refreshing beverage. I personally love ice cold water, so it just brings me joy. Same as how I did kind of a specific character highlight reel with Tori there, let's dig into Noel a little bit. There's quite a few little hints, but it's pretty clear that Noelle's mom is the mayor of this town. There's some mentions of her mom being very busy. She doesn't like to be bothered at work. Noelle's house is behind this giant ornate gate in the middle of town. In the south of town, if you go into the town hall, the mayor is very clearly referred to as being a she and someone who heavily prioritizes work. Not only does she act icy, but she always keeps her AC on full blast. So even if Noelle's mom doesn't end up being another reindeer, maybe she's at least another winter or holiday-themed monster. That chill I feel is this what politics feels like? There's a small pine tree kept in the corner of the office, the type of tree that's like most commonly used for Christmas trees. And just in case people didn't know this on their own, once you go and talk to Noelle and her father in the hospital, and hear their many Christmas puns, we have Noel for Pierre Noel, which is French for Santa Claus. Their last name is Holiday. Her dad is Rudy or Rudolph. He calls you Christmas. He talks about getting tangled in light displays. Noel has a red nose, deer in headlights. These two are a little obsessed with being reindeer and the holiday season, I think. But once you've gone through all this dialogue, you can go and chat to Noel alongside the gate here. Similar to there being a dialogue tree with sands that you can't really do without cheating the system a little bit, there is one little bit of branching dialogue here with Noel that you'll miss out on by making a selection. After first catching up a little bit and just talking about school a little, Noel asks you what you want to talk about. You can select Susy. That's right, you were with Susy. When you didn't come back to class, I was worried, but everything turned out okay, I think? Chris, can I ask you something if that's okay? Susy, I'm kind of curious what she's like, you know? There's several hints throughout the game that Noel is crushing super hard on Susy. There's a bunch of them, but the first one I know of is when Noel tries to volunteer to go to the supply closet with Susy to get extra chalk. But then Noel gets totally cock-blocked because Chris is still looking for a partner. You also kind of interrupt Noel and her dad, and Noel might have been pitching the idea of asking Susy out. I think there might be one or two more hints sprinkled throughout, but we don't need to cover every single one. I mean, who doesn't wonder about her? She never talks to anyone. So Chris, could you tell me about her if that's okay? And there's a few different options here that you can choose. Once you've selected one of these, you can't go back and select the other, so I'm saving you guys the replay there. You can simply say she's nice. What? She's a nice person? Really? Like, really? Honestly? Truly? I mean, that's just what I was hoping, but... Wait, this isn't another trick, is it, Chris? Like when you put ketchup on your arms and told me it was blood? Really? You're serious? You're totally serious? Gosh, then maybe I should try talking to her. But if I die, you're paying for my funeral, Chris. Though honestly, if she's nice, I might die too. Super adorable. There's hints that Noel will play a larger part in Chapter 2, and I'm kind of hoping that that relationship gets explored a little bit in Chapter 2. But there are other options. You can say that she eats chalk. What? She was eating the chalk? Really? Wait, you're teasing me, aren't you, Chris? Like when you told me Ice E was real and eats kids. So Des smacked you with a wiffle bat till you stopped lying? Huh, you're telling the truth? Seriously? Then what colored chalk does she like? And do you think she likes the thin or the thick kind? Wait, maybe making our lunchbox full of chalk is stupid. No judgments from Noelle, she's still crushing hard. You can also just say she's terrible. She what? She smashed you against the lockers? Gosh, Chris, I'm really sorry, that's just awful. I thought Susy was good, just maybe it would take someone special to find her good side? She really is terrible, isn't she? Chris, I'm so sorry you have to go through this. In fact, I wonder if Alvies would let us switch partners? I mean, you know, so you wouldn't have to be the one who, gets to be slammed into lockers and stuff anymore. Wait, I don't think I phrased that correctly. I actually had to do a double take when reading that myself. I thought I had read it incorrectly. A little bit kinky there. I think Noelle just admitted she's okay with getting roughed up a little. And the final option is to just kind of pause. Seriously, Chris? But I help you all the time. The least you can do is give me a little information. Like, does she like metal music? Is she really an obligate carnivore? Does she really have a tail underneath her jacket? Which is kind of funny because later in the game it's completely proved that she does not have a tail. If you get the item the Devil's Tail and equip it to Susy, you get this little bit of flavor text at the bottom where she says that she always figured she would grow a tail someday. Sorry, Chris, it's not any of my business, is it? I blew it, didn't I? So no matter which choice, Noelle still has her little fantasy about Susy. Adorable. I'm really a big fan of how this has been set up in this chapter so far. If you do try and follow it up with a second question in the same playthrough, oh, can I ask you something else about her? Well, did it seem like she, wait, you definitely wouldn't know that. I think basically Noelle was just gonna ask, is she into girls? Maybe that's a little presumptuous of me, but that seems like that's where she was going, but she won't take it any further than that. Kind of closes off the line of communication there. And I think that's everything I'm actually going to cover in this video. I would estimate that I quite easily have enough stuff on my list to make another video of this length. But these videos take a very long time to finish, and if I didn't cut this one off here, I have some stuff that was going to delay it another several days. So I'd rather put this one out now, take a little bit of a breather, come back to it, and maybe make a part 4 that kind of finishes off this series of videos looking at this sort of stuff. Plus, I don't want to totally burn myself out on this. I think if I commit much more time to it, I might start to hate the game. And I want to leave it while it's still fun, you know, so I can go back to anticipating Chapter 2 with everyone else. Again, I just want to say that the support for these videos has been absolutely insane. Thank you guys all so much. Literally doubling our subscriber count in the span of a week is pretty insane. I'm still having fun making it, and you guys are still enjoying it. So I would say we have at least one more of these videos to look forward to. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks again for your suggestions. I'll see you again soon.